Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, we're gonna be talking about videos that you should read this year in 2022. And now as I started to do this, I was going through all my books and trying to decide what to do and which ones to include and not include, and my list got so long that I decided to limit myself to just the books that I read in 2021. So these are gonna be the top books I read in 2021 that I think you should read in 2022. There are gonna be a variety of different things that are nonfiction books that you should read this year, but most of them are business books because I, have a business, have a side hustle, and that's what we talk about here is side hustling and having, a life, but also a side hustle and just kind of making everything work. So we're gonna go through 6 different books and yeah, let's get into it. So the first one is gonna be this book that I am reading for the second time, and that is called Your Best Year, and this one's called Final Draft, and it's by Lisa Jacobs. So this is also business edition. There's like a life edition, I think. This book is like half book, half workbook, and so you go through and you like work through it and answer a bajillion different problems, and it helps you to have your best year, but it does that by really like digging deep into what you want and how you're gonna achieve that, and just making your plans come to fruition. I love that it's so specific and that it's a workbook, so you have to like work through it and answer all these questions, and it really helps you come to an understanding of what you want out of this year. It also gave me some really eye-opening pieces where it talked about like how to do some different things. So for example, there's a whole section about literally how to make more money in your business if you don't know how to do that, and like that was super eye-opening, as well as just like different online business rules that I didn't know because I haven't been around as long as Lisa Jacobs has. And so many things that just really helped. She talked about how typically online things are kind of like 3 months off, and so if you put a lot of work in, it typically is like 3 months later that it does well. So if you're like not seeing results now, it's usually due to what you did 3 months ago, and those are things that I didn't know. She also again talks about like how to make more money and how to like come up with a plan to make that happen, and just really like keeping on top of things, and it was so fascinating, so good. I'm reading it for the second time, so I would highly recommend that you read it as well. All of these will be linked down below, by the way, in the description. They are all going to be affiliate links, because affiliate links means that you pay the same amount of money, but I get like a teensy little bit of money for being affiliate with Amazon. And so you do not have to use those links, but you can if you would like to, and then I get a little bit of money. It's not much, but my philosophy is if I'm going to suggest something, I might as well get a little kickback for it if that's possible. The next book I want to talk about is one you might be sick of hearing me talk about, and that is called Profit First. This book is about getting your business money situated, and I would recommend this 1000% to everybody. Even if you don't have a business, it is so helpful, and like I have changed my personal finances off of what I have learned in this book, and it has been really helpful and really eye-opening to me. Through it has like a really practical plan of how to handle your business finances, and it talks about really good principles to keep and what to do with your money when you get paid, and how to just keep on top of it. And this whole thing is, it says, transform your business from a cash-eating monster to a money-making machine. So really making sure that you're making profit and you're making money in your business all throughout, so that your business isn't just like spending everything, and keeping track of everything, making sure you have money put aside for everything that you need. And just like, it is so good. So good. I highly recommend. There is a chapter in here about personal finances as well, and literally you can take the whole book and like put that into the context of personal finances, and it will also work. So highly recommend this one. If you are just starting a business, read this book and implement the strategies now, because then once your business is making more money, you will already have those habits in place. If you already have a business and your money is a disaster, also read this book, because it will also help. Just everybody read this book. Read this book. If you don't read any other ones, pick this one. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that last year was the year of the money books, and I read a lot of books about money last year. And one of my favorite ones was this one called Smart Women Finish Rich. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of an issue with this one, and I really didn't want to read it. And the reason is because it's about money for women, and it's written by a guy. And that just felt a little weird to me, but as I was reading, I found out that he actually, David Bach, was a financial advisor specifically for women for like years and years and years before he wrote this book. And so he approached this book as like, here are basically the differences between how men handle money and how women handle money, and how you need to make sure that, you know, these things are covered that maybe men wouldn't have to notice, and just the tendencies between men and women. It was so fascinating and so helpful. It's really good as like a guide for once you are making a little bit of money and you need to know what to do with it. And it goes in depth into all sorts of different kinds of bank accounts, and, you know, what percentage you need to put in your retirement, and like all these different things. And it is really, really good. It's very like step by step. It's actually really practical, and it was so helpful, so helpful. There's also other ones. So on the back it says there's a Smart Couples Finish Rich, there's a Start Late and Finish Rich, there's also one called The Automatic Millionaire. I haven't read that one, but I think I will. And then I also have read The Latte Factor by him. If you are like, your money's a disaster and you have no idea where to start, get The Latte Factor. That one is super short, it's very simple, and it's good for like the very basics, and it's written like a story, so if you're not into fiction or non-fiction books, then it's still good. For me, it was a little bit too basic, but it was still interesting to read. This was a lot more like specifics and stuff like that, so I enjoyed it. The next one I do not have here with me because it lives upstairs, and honestly I just took it upstairs the other day, and so I was like, I really don't want to bring it back downstairs and take it upstairs and just up and down the stairs. Have you seen in the new Gilmore Girls Year of Life, where in Paris's house, where they talk about like going up and down the stairs, and they're like, we can't go up the stairs? That's how I feel about this. I was like, no, we can't go upstairs. Anyway, but that book is High Performance Habits. I had already read this book, and then last year y'all picked it as the Becca, the Teacherpreneur Academy book club pick. So over the summer we did a book club where we read through the book and had different prompts in a Facebook group, and then we also had Zoom calls where we got on the call and chatted and answered all the questions, and it was so much fun. It was so great. I really want to do it again next year. I mean, no promises, but I would like to do it again next year. And so it was so much fun, and that was the book that y'all had chosen, and it was so good. Even the second time I saw so many things that I had not noticed the first time, and it was just really helpful. High Performance Habits goes through obviously like habits of high performing people, but when I picked up the book I thought it was gonna be, you know, like, oh, drink water, go to bed early. No, these are like really specific things, and they are more general than that. So things like having a purpose and like having confidence and like all these different things, and in it gives you specific examples of how to cultivate those things in your life. So it has strategies and examples of how you can cultivate these habits in your life so that you can then be high performing. It has like journal prompts all throughout it. It is so good. So good, highly recommend. It's linked below. The next one is one for the business owners, and that is the book Company of One. This book was really interesting. I read it on the recommendation of Pat Flynn. He talks about this one quite a bit, and it's by Paul Jarvis, and it's really interesting because it goes very much against all of the advice that most of the online like business people have. So most people, you know, in online business are like, you need to keep going, you need to work even harder and make even bigger goals. And oh my gosh, like Grant Cardone literally has a book called 10X, and his whole thing is you should make your goals 10 times as crazy and 10 times as much and do 10 times as well, and then work 10 times as hard to get there. And this book really challenges that and talks more about like figuring out what you want out of your business. And so like he tells a story about going surfing with one of his friends who's an accountant, and it's like September, and the accountant was like, I just made enough money that I don't have to work the rest of the year. And the guy who wrote it was like, what? And you know, like that's an option. And so like it just really explores the idea of you may not need a giant business. Your small business might be exactly what you want and what you need, and it's actually a lot easier to deal with. And so like just really digging into like what you want and then how to make your business reflect that. So really highly recommend. It had a lot of practical ideas and ways that you can kind of help your company of one, succeed and stay a company of one. And it was just really interesting. That doesn't mean I'm like never ever gonna hire someone, but it was helpful for me to just really take stock of like, what do I actually want out of my business? So I would highly recommend this one, especially if you do have a small business, and especially if you feel all that pressure to like hire all the people and have a giant business and be like, but I just like making resources for, you know, I just like making resources. It's so much fun. All right, and the last one I have for you today is called Great by Choice. And this is by, I'm gonna get it wrong. I always get it wrong. I get it wrong every time. Jim Collins. I always want to say Phil Collins, but that's the guy that wrote the Tarzan songs. So Jim Collins wrote Great by Choice. He has a couple of different books. I have also read his called Built to Last. I liked this one better, and I just got a third one by him for Christmas, so I'm excited to try that one. But Great by Choice goes through a whole bunch of different companies, and it compares two competing companies that are similar to each other during a similar time frame, and talks about why one ended up doing a lot better than the other. And so in all their comparison studies, they found these like certain things that the businesses that did really, really well continued to do. And those are things that you can actually implement into your business right now. There was a lot of really interesting things that he talked about in this one, but I think one of my favorite things was the idea of the 20-mile march. And so the 20-mile march is this concept of working pretty much every day and working a certain amount and not going in the spurts that a lot of times business owners do, and a lot of times especially side hustlers do this so badly, where one day you work for like 12 hours and then the next day you don't work at all, and the next day you might work for 1 hour, and like it's very inconsistent and it leads to inconsistent results. All of the companies in the study that did really well and like 10x'd the other companies were doing what, like a 20-mile march. So like they were working the same amount, they were growing the same amount, they were continuing to grow like at a certain amount every day, every year, and like kind of that being the approach that you should take. So like for a side hustler like us, that would mean, you know, instead of working, you know, a crazy amount sometimes and like not at all other times, working, you know, an hour or two every day, or, you know, 3 hours every week, or 5 hours every week, or whatever. But the idea being that you're making incremental progress instead of having like spurts of crazy and spurts of really slow. Another thing they talked about was what he called firing bullets and then cannonballs. So what he meant by that is that these companies would test things. So they would fire bullets, you know, some bullets are small. They would test things, see how they went, and once they, you know, had tested all these things and something worked, then they would put a lot of effort into it. So they would fire a cannonball, something really big, into that. So the idea of like testing, and then once you figure out what works, like really leaning into that. And that's something that I did last year, partially because of reading this book, and it really made a difference in my business. That I was making like different kinds of products, and as I saw things that worked, I would like put my full force into it for a few weeks so that I could really expand that product line, really make sure that those products were like making as much as they could. And it just ended up really helping expand my business because I was going the right direction, but I was also trying enough things that I had options and I could see what was working and what wasn't working. If I hadn't tried so many things, I wouldn't have tried some of the things that ended up making a lot of money last year and doing really, really well. All right, friends, so that is the 6 books that I had on my list for you to use this year. That's what, one every other month? Yeah, you can totally do that. I did want to throw in one fiction book because I have a deep love of fiction, and so I just love to throw one in at the end as, you know, like almost like a bonus. So the one I wanted to share is this book, When We Left Cuba by Chanel Cleeton. She has a couple of different books. I have all of hers in like this line, so I'm looking at them behind the camera. There's Next Year in Havana, The Last Train to Key West, The Most Beautiful Girl in Cuba. That one just came out last year. this one when we left Cuba, and then she has a new one coming out this year as well, which I'm so excited about. Y'all, can we just be real for a second? Like, authors that write lots and lots of books are my kind of authors. I like a prolific author who writes all the things so I can keep reading, because I'm obsessed, and I'm 100% gonna buy the new book as soon as it comes out. And it's gonna be like the first book I read this summer. It's gonna be glorious, sitting at the pool reading it. That's what I did with this one. This one actually I read in 2020, and then I also read it again in 2021. But it is about a family that left Cuba, obviously. And so it's a family with 3 girls, and they have left Cuba during the Cuban Revolution and moved to Florida. And so they are going through kind of adjusting to that. And the main character in this one, Beatriz, ends up being recruited to kind of join the anti-communist efforts, and it is just so interesting. I love all of like the interesting stuff about Cuba and learning all about that kind of stuff in that time period. I love historical fiction. That's like my jam. So good, so good. So highly recommend. I will link all of her books in this little series down below. You don't have to read them in order. They're all like connected, but it's not a series necessarily. They're just connected. Like, one of the sisters in here, one of the sisters in another one has like their great aunt in it. And so just, you don't have to read them all, but they are all connected. So highly recommend. I will link them down below, and I hope that will keep you occupied for a while. I would love to know some of your favorite books, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, and things that you think I should read this year, because I'm compiling my to be read list. Although I'm not gonna lie, I have a giant stack of books to read in my closet, so I will be working on those this year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.